What's going on, guys? We're gonna kick this thing off. Just kind of get into it here, and so hopefully, whoever it's the weekend, Saturday. I don't expect anyone to kind of really show up right now. So when the video's over, you can watch it whenever it posts. But if you are here and joining me, I appreciate you showing up. Let's get into it real quick. So I want to go over a few things, right? One thing I did kind of tell y'all that I was gonna go over is just how to, I would say, manage a portfolio, how to get that money in your bank account, how to, win when it comes to trading options and stocks. And that's the key. So I'm gonna go over that. Then I'm gonna go over just kind of some setups and how I kind of structure my setups and what I look for when it comes to those setups as well. And then, of course, let me go over right now Friday's trades. They weren't too bad. So let's go over Friday's trades real quick. So Friday's trades were all puts, right? Ended up, first one was NVIDIA. NVIDIA was really nice. We opened up pretty much right around the 206, 207 area. And I'll get on the 15 because the 15 you see a little bit better now. Only thing I was aiming for really was this gap fill right here. It wasn't a big one, but it was enough for me to, lotto's cheap. Wanted to go for it on some lottos. So I was looking for this move right here. We opened up pretty nicely in this area right here, right at open. So not a bad look, to be honest. I like that. A little bit of a push up. You can see it on that, green candle right there. And so it did push up and hit that 208 level from there, rejected. And you can see on that next 15, knife straight into the gap and exactly what I was looking for. So this is just one of those moves, guys, where you can't be scared if a position goes against you, even if it's a 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever the case may be. Now it's lottos here that we're playing, so we can't let it go against us too much. But the trade was still very much valid. And the reason why I say that is because we had a lot of resistance up here. We hit that. Market was pulling back. No way that this was going to kind of push. It tried. But if the market was not on our side, then of course this probably wouldn't have worked. So you can see the 15 opened up and then knife straight into the gap and the whole move I was looking for. So 204 was kind of my area right there. And we hit that on the very next candle. So 45 minutes kind of went by. It took forever on that trade, but forever when it comes to lottos for sure. But exactly what I was looking for in that move, and then we actually ended up going way lower, and those puts going pretty much in the money all the way down here at 202.60. So yeah, pretty good drop, $4 drop. That's all we're really looking for right there. Next one was shortly after open as well. We went with Apple. Apple, I saw ended up very weak here, and I was looking for this knife straight down to 265, 263, but we got a good 40% on those contracts, so I took that and ran on this first 15 minute. It held for a little bit and then just completely knifed, and exactly we got in on the move down. Knew that we got in around 275. We knew that we'd end up dumping 269, 270 right here. So this was, a really good drop, right? Like I said, from 275 all the way down to 270, 269. So I got my 40%, told the team I'm all out. They kept moving or whatever the case may be. Boom, take it and run. That's what I was looking for right there. Now, QQQ was the complete banger. So I actually ended up going QQQ right here on this 15, right when it opened up. As this kind of pushed down, actually, I didn't wait for it. I actually went for it here on this 15. Got the push down right there. I entered at 233 or 633. I'm sorry, 633 on some lottos. Ended up coming down to 631. So a $2 drop right there. Ended up dropping another dropped another dollar, so $3 down into this area right here. They came back up for a retest. You can see that. I was already all out, so this was pretty much the move I got right here, and exactly a little bit higher. About right here, this move was exactly what I got from 633 all the way down to 631. Those move fine. I mean, perfectly 50, 60%. As opposed to, holding on. We got the retest. Those would have went, super crushed on the lottos and then all the way down to 300%. Now, this was very interesting because we stayed inside the flag and I knew we had resistance right at open on QQ, so I knew we'd end up dropping. Now, I did see that we did retest, and then from there, we just literally went, bottom of the flag, top of the flag, the bottom of the flag, and then back into range. So again, if you wanted to hold through the fire, you could have easily held through the fire and not have taken any profit at all. It's still been, holding on and at this point you would have thought you're crushed, but you don't understand. This is actually like where entry should have been. So you could have either added more, just stayed patient, knowing that you should get the move all the way down here. So the difference between stopping out and losing and just waiting a little bit longer for that 300% is just knowing the trade, right? Knowing when to stop out or knowing when to be patient with it. Two separate things, major two separate. So you got to understand that. I would say this was one of those trades where you definitely could have stayed patient for that 300%. But for me, I'm taking my money fast with lottos. I'm not messing around. I'm getting the 40, I'm getting the 50%, I'm getting the 30%, whatever the case may be. When it comes to lottos, I don't mess around at all. So definitely kind of take that warning a little bit when you're touching lottos. For me, no more than if the lotto isn't already moving in my direction, and I'm talking about when I touch lottos and I touch it for the move that I'm looking for, it needs to be working immediately like this. It needs to be working immediately. I need to see the movement just like that. That's what I'm talking about. No drawdown. I'm in it immediately and it's working immediately and I'm getting that 30, 40, 50%. That's what I'm looking for right there. Now, if I'm holding lottos and it's still going, I can put stops to buy, and it ends up going with a move like this, where then it doesn't stop me out, it just keeps going. Then that's good. Stops to buy. Now you can say I put stops to buy for my last few on that first attempt right there, it would have got stopped out for sure, but I would have been protected, and then it would have dumped right back down. I could have again understood where we are in the market. With the setup, I could have re-entered at a cheaper price, right? Protected those other contracts, re-entered at a cheaper price, and continued to play the move down, right? You don't gotta be so kamikaze with it. You don't gotta be Kaiser Sosa with it. You don't have to just all out with it. You can be very strategic with it, and that's one way I like to be strategic with it as well. So, pretty cool stuff right there. Those are my trades, 3 for 3. If you want my trades, wap.com/Regal Capital. Join the winning team, baby. I'm the king of the open. Make our money at open. That's how we do it right there. That was an opening play right there. First 15 minute, first 45 minutes right there. Done. First hour of the market. That's what I'm talking about right there. Then we can sit back and see if any swings present themselves or what the case may be. But pretty cool stuff right there. All right. Let me go over now. Let's see. I would say let's go over setups real quick, right? What is a setup and what do I kind of look for when it comes to setups? Now, the example I'm going with is TQQQ. Now, this is just like QQQ, right, our market, but the difference is it's cheaper and it's a leveraged, so it's even better. And the difference is the contracts. There's only weekly contracts on TQQ. It's not lottos or daily. So you can capture that QQ SPY move on a weekly if you're looking for it, and they're usually pretty cheaper right now. Things are pretty juiced, or this past week because of earnings, big tech earnings and stuff like that. So yeah, but keep that in mind. They're usually pretty cheaper, so you can always use this as a backup plan to play SPY and QQ if those contracts are pretty juiced up, I would say. So definitely keep that in mind. Keep that in mind for sure. Keep that in mind. Now, let's look at TQ. Let's look at some setups. How am I gonna, look at the setup? So I like the reason why I'm even pulling this up right now, and I just drew these zones earlier in the day. I rarely chart TQQ now. That's just because I already chart QQ, and I can just play. If I'm already gonna play QQ, TQQ is the same thing, so I can just use TQQ's contracts instead of actually just charting. I can just use QQ's chart because it's basically the same thing now. I do like charting TQ just in case to, just to match up my QQ chart to see if I'm missing anything or if one's showing something else than the other, things like that. So I like doing that. So I just charted this and I really wish I didn't chart this today so I can kind of do it live for you guys right now, but that's okay. All I did was the zones. Now what I'm going to do right now next is how we're going to make this, I would say, more recognizable for the setup, right? Because we see the zones, right? You see the red, you see the green, you see the buyers, right? You see where we bounced, buyers, and then of course you see the red, so the sellers, right? So sellers, and then of course Again, we sold out of it right here. Notice how Friday we popped back up in the same area, rejected at open, came right down back to this area right here, which again, they tried to defend, couldn't quite do it. We fell under it right here, and on that candle is when I would have entered right there on some puts for that move down. So 117 all the way down to 115.40s. So yeah, 117.30s to 115.40s. Beautiful. You're winning on that. So just knowing where you are in the market. So this is just already my strategy, the real cap zones. Say you don't have this. Say these are gone and you just kind of see this moment right here. All right. First thing I want you guys to do, first thing is right click on whatever you're on and go to gaps. I want you to show as many gaps as you can. Maybe trading view, maybe whatever you're on. Obviously the settings will be different. Robinhood's not going to show this, so you need to get on a better platform. Webull, just right click on here, right, and then I think on the mobile you can kind of, it's something very similar to that to show gaps again. But if not, I would suggest getting on Webull's desktop version, or just type in app.webull.com. It connects to your app, so any charting you do on here, make sure you set something up right. Make sure you chart it, and then let's see. Make sure you draw some charts. You say once you draw it, you're gonna see this kind of menu right here. I would say lock it right there, so it's always going to be locked on your chart, and you don't have to redraw anything, and it transfers over to your app. So you just flip the app open, and everything you've done on your app, and or here vice versa, it gets saved. So save yourself some time. I realize I've been doing this for so long. I realize a lot of people don't know that. I did that years ago, so I don't, so yeah, if you're a newer trader or, getting familiar with Webull. So anyways, zones, right? Where are we at, right? We understand looking at the zones, and this is my strategy. Say you don't have these, right? Say you're just kind of looking at this. First things first, right? The gaps, show the gaps. One thing that really helps is understand where the gaps are. Gaps are just, I would say, low liquidity, where there's just no order stacked there. And the reason what the gap is it was an overnight from 1024 into 1025. You can see we gapped up there, and overnight there's like no liquidity there, right? And we can look at another indicator that I use, which is the volume profile. Now we have the volume profile here, and I like this, and you can see where the orders are kind of stacked. Now you don't have to do this. I just like to show this on my chart real quick to know that what I'm seeing is correct. So volume profile as an indicator. And you can see, look how the bars are all stacked here, right? A lot of orders were up here right now. You can see a lot of orders from where we are right now. A lot of indecision. We held here a few times. And then you can see how there's none stacked under where that gap is. And that's pretty much the point. No orders stacked there, meaning that this gap is just like thin air, that if we hit it, we should start knifing through this area, right? It will be butter. All this is just butter slicing straight through. And it pretty much just signifies, where my levels are at, because right here I have a level, which is the 111, this blue line, 111.28. And you can see that first block sitting at that 111.28. Cool. That makes sense. Now I have a demand here, meaning I think buyers are here. And yes, you can see these blocks right here. The bigger block is sitting right at the top of that demand and in the demand. Yes, perfect. All right. So now what I'm seeing, that is true. Perfect. All right. So now that we identified the gaps and kind of where we're at, what I want you guys to do is kind of identify, I would say, identify a pattern, right? What is this kind of showing us, right? So right now we know we're on a downtrend because we're not on an uptrend. And the reason how I caught the high of the week last week was just simply doing this, right? We gapped up early on a Monday and we kept it pushing. How did I know Wednesday we topped? Because all I did was get on the hourly time frame. I drew a yellow trend line at the very opening candle on the hourly, the first hourly candle right there at that bottom. That first candle right there, and I just drew it straight top to that. It's almost the high of day of that Wednesday, but I just drew it straight top. And the reason I did that was because notice how, and it's kind of like a channel if you really wanted it, where it's kind of something like this. If you really wanted to be kind of like a channel, think about it like that. But I don't. I just, the only thing that I really care about is the bottom part of that channel, because if we snap that, then we know that we're no longer on an uptrend. I drew that little base that just goes up, and notice how every time we got to the, or no, every time we rode this like channel, it's respected, right? Respected after hours right there. You can see it. As we opened up the next day, notice how the hourlies held here. Even though we went lower than it, but the body held. And that's the biggest thing. You see the wicks. We did break it on the wicks, but the hourly body kind of told the story. There's a saying that says the body of the candles will always tell the story. The wicks do the damage. The body tells you the story, right? And you can see a lot of that. The wicking up here, but the body told us the story. Now, again, we held the trend line until we broke it Wednesday. When we broke it Wednesday, that's when I was starting to play puts, knowing that if we broke this, likely we're going to start coming down into range. Notice how we broke it and we never once got back into this range where we should have. Now there is plenty of times where we will break some stuff, and it will I would say snap right back up and reclaim it. Now that's a whole different thing, and we can go over that soon. Can you check Google, please? Yes, I'll go over Google here in a little bit. So as you can see, uptrend, we broke it. We snapped the uptrend on Wednesday. We know at that point I was no longer playing calls for after Wednesday. It was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. After that, I was playing puts, knowing that we snapped it. Now we are on a downtrend, so we're kind of making sense of this, right? That's what we're doing right now. So now that we're on a downtrend, where is the highest point of this? Highest point was the opening on Wednesday right here, this one right here. Now you could be like, well, Rico, what about this point right here? Now this point is after hours. That doesn't count. That doesn't count in my eyes. That doesn't count. After hours doesn't count to me. It only matters about what happens in range, in bounds, market hours. So when you're charting, I want you to only pay attention to market hour stuff. Don't pay attention to after hours, pre-market, stuff like that. Pre-market you can pay attention to. You can do that. Yo, what's up, A1? My boy A1's here. You can pay attention to it, pre-market and after hours, but I want those pre-market and after hours for you be confirmation for your levels, right? And what I mean by that is, when you see it after hours, is it respecting your levels? That's how you know your levels are good, right? So I would say for TEQ, right, this blue level, this 120 level right here, notice Friday pre-market, we wicked off that and then pushed down. So we tagged that resistance, which is the level. We smacked the blue line, and then we just didn't break above it, right? We reversed it, printed a reversal. So that makes a lot of sense. Notice how, we lost this zone right here on this hourly. It pushed up to retest it, and then after that, not only rejected it, the next hourly dumped it. You can see right there. So again, I want you guys to kind of look at pre-market stuff and see how it affects your levels, or respects it. I would say affect it. Don't chart off of pre-market, after hour stuff. Only market hour stuff. So high of day of the week was Wednesday officially. Now from there, you can draw kind of a line straight down, right? Let's draw a line straight down, and I would say about right here. And the reason why I say right here was, now we could go a little bit wider. I want you to draw it straight down, kind of like how I drew it straight up like this, right? From that first week, on that first day, I drew this straight up, and I said, all right, TQ has to respect this level up, this trend line, all the way for this to be continuously bullish. Now, this is a little bit different. This we can easily, go out a day or two, and you can see what really fits the most, right? What fits the most. You can see that pre-market kind of fits. So again, I'm not charting off of pre-market. I'm just charting off of what makes sense. This after hours on that same Wednesday popped up, respected it. What didn't respect it was Friday's kind of pre-market action. Now, this right here is different. I don't want you guys to get too, I would say, don't get too caught up in something like this. And the reason why I say that is because we're looking for downside here, and if upside comes, this is where this trend line will come into play, right? We're looking for downside. Now, notice how it rejected and then we opened up outside of it, but it dumped. And then again, if you still pay attention, that green candle right there opened up and pushed into supply, which rejected, hit the yellow trend line, which rejected, and then of course ended up dumping pretty hard. This right here is where you can identify which trades you really can go in, because there's a lot of resistance right here. The yellow trend line, the supply, versus us just going up, right? This would have been easily 2-1, 3-1 trade. I would say 3-1 because we're on a downtrend already. Downtrend, supply, and then the yellow trend line resistance. So a 3-1 short trade right here, short a put trade. You could have slammed those puts right there, 119, and rode it to 116. That's a $3 drop, especially if you're playing lottos midday. Bang, you're making it. Now that's pretty awesome stuff. So the whole difference, or the whole reason why I'm saying don't get too peculiar with it is or don't get too uptight about it, is because we just want to know if this is still on a downtrend and not an uptrend. So yes, we're still on a downtrend, we're under it. Now here, we're hitting a demand, but if we weren't hitting a demand right here and you didn't have this on your chart, you can go for the lowest point of the lowest point would be right here, which was that Thursday. Lowest of the candle. I would draw it like a flag, right? And just go meet that same point, right? The same point would have been right there. So then you can now see, and I don't really have to draw this yellow line. It's pretty redundant because the green line, or my demand, acts as that flag. And that's what this really is. We're seeing that this is flagging here. And I like this setup. It is a really good setup. So now you can be like, all right, what am I looking at for, I would say, next week, right? What am I looking at going into, maybe like, how can I play this now going into next week, right? How can I make sense of this? Because now I understand where we're at, right? Now you understand just where you're at. Now you have to understand where we're going, and that's a whole different thing. And that's why I said you don't got to get too crazy with the trend line out here because of this, right? So now we understand we have a huge gap down here. So we're on a downtrend. We have a huge gap below. Bears are still in control as far as kind of the lower time frames, but an hourly and 15-minute, we're still on this time frame. We could still see some pulling back. We have this huge gap down here. That's one incentive to come down. That's a big one too. A downtrend, right? So we know that, all right, if we end up losing, which is that same low, which is the first candle on Monday that I drew that yellow trend line up, if we lose that level, which the level is 114.27, and I already have it marked right there, 114.27. If we lose that, we know we're dropping into this gap. And if we drop into this gap, we know we have a high probability chance of dropping to the end of this gap, which is 110.90. Now, we could fill the whole gap, which we likely will, but I want you to say, well, what is my next level down? That's going to be my target, not the whole gap. That's going to be my target. My next level down is that 111.28 right here. And we know that because that's where buyers actually, we already put that level on, but then when we check the volume profile, right? We checked the volume profile. We knew that buyers actually do step in right at that 111.28 level right there. You can see it. So we know we got a clean, it's a smooth sailing down to that 111. They're going to try and fight us there a little bit. We could see a little bit of a push up, whatever the case may be. When you're trading options, you got to know that, and you got to know where we're at on that. Okay, we know they're going to try and fight us there. Awesome. That's going to be my main target to pretty much sell all. If not, I'll put stops with buy for the last and just see if we get the rest of the gap and end up coming down to 109. That's another, $1.50 drop. I'll sell the rest right there and see, what else gain I can get on those. But again, having that game plan, this is what I'm looking for right here. So we are still in this. Now, plenty of times I've seen setups just like this. And so you got to have the other game plan, the opposite game plan, right? Say you're so ready for this. You're so ready. We drop into this Monday. It holds, and then boom. You're caught off guard now. Whole time you're ready for puts, and maybe you're even close to slamming. Maybe you did slam down here. Maybe you didn't even wait for that break at 114.27. You're like, hey, we're 70 cents off. There's no way we're not going to hit it. Let's just slam the puts now. Let's front run it. Let's get ahead of the party. Let's do our thing. I'm gonna be so rich. You're already counting the M's. You're already counting the millions. You're already spending the money you thought you were about to make. You're already in the Porsche. You're already in Vegas. You already got all the girls or men around you, depending on who you are, and you're already doing it. But the trade's not even over. In fact, it hasn't even started. We held this demand and we actually pushed up into this range. Now, again, the reason why I like these flag patterns is because I've seen some pretty good plays come out from the upside of this, and they work just as well as the downside. So at that point, you gotta be ambidextrous here, and you got to understand, like, you got to have game plans for up and down, because it's not up to you, it's the market's going to do what it's going to do. You need to be prepared for it. You need to react when it's time. If it zigs, you got to zag, you got to go with it. So you cannot be saying, hey, I want downside and that's all I'm prepared for, and that's all I'm going to do. What's up, Rico? Could you go over futures? Yes, thanks. I got you, trading nerd. I got you. Stick around with me. I promise you. I'm just gonna go over this real quick, and then I'll go over Google. I'll go over ES. I got you guys. Also, I have an AI bot that alerts ES, MES, and ES and MNQ for futures. It's been killing it. So if you're not a part of the group on Rio Capital, or get my AI, consider that. Consider that. WAP.com/Rio Capital, or find me on Twitter, Rio Capital on Twitter. But yeah, WAP.com/Rio Capital. Get access to the Discord. It fires off perfectly. Like, it's I love it. Right, Monday it caught ES right at open MNQ. The moment futures open, it said slam calls, and obviously it was nothing but a push up from there. Anyways, all right. So we gotta be having game plans for the upside too. You can't just have downside game plans. If we end up breaking, right, that yellow trend line, then that's where I'm looking to be kind of taking the calls, right? Because we know at that point, if we break this yellow trend line, calls are going to start now working, right? We're at that range. Think of it, same thing, like when we broke down, or we broke the uptrend, right, for puts. Puts ended up working, right? You end up taking puts. Notice the next day we end up dropping into 115. And this is TQQ, right? From 120 to 115, it's a $5 move in less than 24 hours. Now with QQ is obviously a little bit more dramatic. Q is a little bit more dramatic. Things like that. Could you share where I can access it? Yes, on screen right now. I'm gonna pop it up. See, right here. It's wap.com/Regal Capital. Get on there real quick, and it takes you straight to my landing page, and you can sign up from there. Just sign up for it. Gets you straight to the Discord, right? Gives you the link once you sign up. You're in the team. You're in the futures access bot. Pretty much, you get access to the channel, and you can see pretty much everything that's kind of it's been firing off. Gives you the trend update, right? Daily trend update. Fires off the signals for both MNQ and MES, and it's pretty awesome, right? I got a few future traders in the group, and they're killing it, right? They're absolutely killing it. So, yeah, awesome stuff. Go ahead, check that out. So you gotta understand, the upside as well. So again, we end up taking those calls up here. It'll end up pushing, and likely we'll end up pushing to those same levels where we sold off, right? I would assume that if we end up breaking this, we would run right back to Friday's highs or opening 119. So that's easily a $2 move. Say this is a downtrend breakout. We always magnet up to, the very top where we ended up selling off. So that 121 level, we would just reverse right back up. So this is why I like having, understanding flag patterns, stuff like that. You got to take it a little bit further than just having your levels. So pretty cool stuff. All right, let's go over Google real quick as requested, and then we'll go over futures ES. To be honest, I stopped charting Google after it hit all-time highs. That massive break of all-time highs right here. This was a very good break right there, and I love that. I like it. The earnings push ended up kind of floating back down a little bit. Again, very bullish on Google. It should hit 300. It got very close to 99.52. I like it. Having been playing it, I do like, kind of seeing it right now, but I do like what I'm seeing here. But pretty much a like kind of falling wedge kind of scenario here. I know there's a level about right there. A little bit of a falling wedge scenario. I like this a lot. Expect this once it breaks the kind of the downtrend, it will magnet right back up to 300, 299 area, but 300 for sure. So keep an eye on that. I do like this, very bullish. Let's go over ES, and then I'll go over how we caught Nvidia this whole week. This one was crazy. Oh my God, this one was absolutely insane. We caught this all week. We're smashing it all last week, and I told the team, as we came out on this week, I'm going to be pressing Nvidia. Surely for the fact that this is a downtrend breakout, double bottom downtrend breakout, and it's the only name that's not juiced on contracts yet. But double bottom down here, we're right here at 185. We played it on that Friday for the gap fill to 188 and almost hit 188. Didn't quite do it. We smashed those calls. I told the team swings could work into Monday. That we gapped up on that Monday. Oh my God. I'll go over that in a minute. Anyways, we'll go over ES real quick. Haven't charted ES, but the reason why I do love ES right now and SPY, they're very much the same. We dug into this gap and noticed this huge gap that we have, huge. And the reason why we're kind of trickling down, we filled most of it, but we still have a little bit left on it. And this is a huge one. And you can see, that daily huge, and it's even bigger on SPY. We have two back-to-back kind of daily gaps. Not too much ES, but ES still has more room to come down, at least to that 68.29 area, 68.30. Notice how we are in kind of and I'm gonna draw this a little bit sloppy, but just a channel right here, kind of a downward channel, and you can see it. At what point, right, are we going to, kind of break this? And if we do break this, how are we gonna really? I don't know. Are we gonna fill the gap? Are we not? Like what could happen here? And I like this. It's kind of like a falling wedge too. But Trump's coming out with more news over the weekend with the China deal. He's trying to pump it. They're fighting us a little bit too much. I was playing SPY puts, and we can look at SPY here. SPY, I had the target down here. We hit that gap twice. We hit it finally, which was on Thursday. We really knifed into it. Friday, we came down. Thursday, we played it into it pretty nicely. Really good gain there. Friday, we came down more into it. But notice how we got straight down to it, tagged it a little bit more, and just absolutely reversed right back up into this channel. Pretty disgusting, but, I was trying to tell the team, it was kind of near close or like midday, be careful down here. Yes, we're getting to the gap. Yes, we are already surfing puts on Q and we won pretty nicely on Friday, but be careful because they've been fighting the gap nasty, right? When I'm looking for selling, I'm looking for sharp pulling down. I'm looking for knifing. I'm looking for something that's not going to wait. Also, be checking the volume, right? If the volume is low, and we're starting to trickle down a little bit, likely we're not going to sell off. Market doesn't sell off low volume. It needs a high volume amount. We can melt up off low volume. We cannot sell off low volume. And plenty of times that I preach that to the members. I'm trading live. I tell that to members. We're in calls. Say we're not really doing too much and it's just low volume sideways. I was like, guys, we don't have enough volume to sell off. Just give it a moment. Let's chill. Let's see what happens. And we're waiting in calls, and then we end up melting up, and getting a gain on our calls and doing less. Now, I do like SPY, and if we can look on the daily here, of course, ES is going to do the same thing, but you can see the second daily gap for SPY. That's at 675 all the way down to 672-ish. 673-ish. We did eat most of the first daily gap. I'm going to call that one complete. I don't like how they're fighting it. I don't like that hammer on the daily. As far as us staying here, I want to see us either eat or push right back up regardless. Let's kind of see what happens, but we ate most of that one. I'm not going to play this gap until we lose that 675 area. And so kind of the same thing for, I would say, ES as well. I need to see a good slice through this. If we end up hitting, I would say 68.43 again, likely we're going to start eating more of that gap and we'll probably close it at 68.30. Not that big of a drop left, but right now it's a little bit tougher with that. So let's see. I kind of stopped charting ES and MNQ after we broke this channel up here, and you can see MNQ still has that huge daily or hourly gap. And QQ still has its gaps open. It's just as big. Two daily back to backs. Pretty cool stuff. Monster moves. You can make a lot of money with this. I hate that they're kind of, you know, I would say I hate that they are kind of fighting it on the move down. I don't like that. Now, one thing that is very interesting that I did see is looking on SPY here. Yes, that daily did print a hammer, and you can see all my levels on my chart on SPY, but you can see we did print on the hammer on the daily. But if we look on the weekly, that's a whole different story. You can see the weekly candle here, and I'm not liking that, especially on a move all the way up into all-time highs. I'm not liking kind of a spinning top here. I don't like that. Very possible we can see some retests, some gap fill closes. We can see some of that going into this week. And it's all about tech right now. Tech has been kind of leading the way. Tech is very strong. We need to see what QQ and MNQ do. They're kind of leading the way mostly. Most of that was NVIDIA. And so how we caught NVIDIA this week, absolutely crazy. Let's get into it here. Now, NVIDIA had an event, and that was, was that Tuesday? Yeah, definitely Tuesday. So we were pressing NVIDIA. The reason why I loved NVIDIA is because we had a massive gap from 185 all the way to 188. This was Friday. We got that. We got that move, played it perfectly. I said swinging calls into Monday will work. We gapped up. Now we played calls again on NVIDIA, any type of dip. It tried closing that gap and go, came right back up. At that same point right here, the reason why we pulled down, I firmly believe, was because QCOM alert came out with some news saying they're going to have some chips that are going to compete with NVIDIA and AMD. AMD was pretty red. NVIDIA was holding it on pretty nicely. QCOM ripped faces. We can look at that move on QCOM. That was a gnarly move, and I was in NVIDIA calls, and you can see I still have it highlighted. Massive move from 168 all the way to 205, and of course trickled all the way down since then. Beautiful, but massive move right there on that hourly. Yeah, so I was in NVIDIA here. And we just kind of stayed patient, pushed up. This was a very interesting day. We were in this calls, and notice how we really didn't go much higher. You can see all this right here. A lot of sideways on that Tuesday. We really weren't going that much higher. The crazy thing was our contracts were increasing nonstop. NVIDIA went down a little bit, though contracts went up. And, we're in chat or in Discord, and we were just kind of talking like, this is so weird. What is going on? Members like Rico, what's going on? I chalked it up to, hey, all big tech is alerting earnings, and their contracts are super juiced. These contracts are not that juiced right now. They're getting there right now. I think it's just catching up on the IV. Now, yes, I've seen contracts, when the stock's not moving, contracts continuously increase. I said it in chat. Usually that signifies a big move is coming. This is still really good. Now, I said that not knowing that an event was going on tomorrow or the CEO is going to be speaking. I'm playing off of price action. I'm great with price action. I didn't know if news was coming. I didn't know any of that. I gave the prediction NVIDIA was going to hit 200 by either this week, this past week, or this upcoming week. In these 2 weeks, NVIDIA was going to hit 200. I did not believe NVIDIA was going to hit 200 that next day, which it did. So we're holding our calls. We cashed some out. We're holding some. We got into more calls this Wednesday, and we snagged them right here, right? Wasn't too much to do on this Wednesday. We were staying patient. I was keeping buying power for NVIDIA for calls. I ended up going at it at the lows here on NVIDIA. The reason why I went at the lows was because we were very close to the all-time high breakout, which was right here, which was that 195.62 all-time high breakout. I'm alerting to the teams. I'm in calls. I end up slamming calls. We're staying patient. This candle on this 15, once we actually broke those highs, this is when the event actually started on that 15 or that hourly right there on hourlies. This hourly right here, our contracts were going crazy from $100 to 170. And then back down to 100, 130, 140 was holding. And then all of a sudden, finally, I was like, I'm staying strong, guys. I was like, I'll trim a little bit. I'm staying strong. Let's do this. I'll trim a little bit for that 70%, sure. But I know a big gain is coming. I'm holding 100 shares of NVDL, so I'm 2 times leveraged in NVIDIA here. I'm holding contracts. I'm going for it here. Let's see what happens. And the hourly opened up right here. We're still in the zone, so no break. But I was like, the hourly's got to do it here, or else we're going to reject and come back down. Hourly started pushing, volume started increasing. We broke. It was just, it was like this. This is how it was moving slowly on the hourly, just pushing, pushing, pushing. We broke again, breakout level, that 195.62, ripped straight to 199. I already had this level, which was pre pre split, yeah, stock split. So it ran perfectly to this level. So rejected it. I don't need to put down another level. Next hourly opened up. You can see it right above that level and ripped to 202. I was selling my calls. I'm like, dude, I'm selling to this. 200 was my target. I was like, any stock that rips above 200 for the first time, technically, I guess for the first time, this is a new split, should run a 220 next. And then, overnight, we saw a nasty, kind of gap up push into 212. I was like, oh my God, is this going to run to 220 immediately? When I say it's going to run to that target, I would suggest like a week or two, or, a month out. But this one looking like it was about to smack it the next day. Again, cash out on calls, and that was all she wrote. I was not looking to keep slamming this. The reason I wasn't was because now we're on Wednesday. This is when SPY and QQ broke their uptrend. So now I'm like, all right, I'm going to stay cautious. I sold most of my shares up here on NVDL. And, contracts, I didn't touch any more QQ, or I didn't touch any more NVIDIA calls. Next time I touched NVIDIA calls was Friday for that gap fill down, and I already went over that, but, beautiful move right there. Again, and that's how we caught it, which was absolutely insane. We didn't keep pressing the next day. We didn't cast these knives. We didn't keep trying to push down here, even though this would have worked. If we ended up slamming down here, it held and pushed up. Again, this is why it's very important to have your levels, right? Very, very important to have your levels. I had these drawn already, right? Drew those. I knew that would come in handy, and voila, it came in handy. That was what, Tuesday. It came in handy Thursday and Friday. So you got to understand where you're at on the board, understand your levels as well, and understand, what is the pattern kind of telling you, right? And so now that we're looking at this, it's looking exactly like SPY QQ, TQQQ. What are we, kind of seeing, or what is this kind of telling us? Well, I do like this. We're on a downtrend here on the hourly. I do like how it's kind of a lowercase h pattern. I do like, usually when we fall out of these, it's pretty aggressive move. Now that aligns pretty perfectly with SPY and QQ, because if we fall out for SPY and QQ, we're hitting those gaps. And those are pretty aggressive gaps. So we know the move is going to be aggressive. So definitely keep that in mind going into Monday or going into Tuesday. I like this, right? And let's take a look at the weekly for NVIDIA. Pretty nasty I like this. Pretty massive candle up. And big wick up here. So yes, there's a lot of resistance up here, or sellers kind of stepped in here. I think a lot of just big players stepped in aggressively for that move, and then they got out. Very aggressive move. I saw that they're starting to hit the tape. The team was sharing stuff from Twitter. We were seeing a lot of flow already hit the tape after we were already in. And as it was pushing harder, they were getting in here before close for that push up. Maybe they sold up there, who knows? But, that was a pretty massive move on our end, and we caught that really nicely. So we're just looking for that. And I'm really good at catching moves like that, knowing where the market is kind of shifting and knowing kind of where we're at when it comes to that. I like that. Now we do have more earnings coming, or going into this week. Nothing too significant. I would say nothing I'm going to be really looking for. I don't really care for these earnings when they juice the contracts, especially because I see some really good plays, and I hate having to either sit back on it, or, take an expensive contract and maybe sell for less than the gain that I was looking for. I hate that. I do, but it's part of the game. It's all right. It's all good. Now, looking at this again, we can kind of draw this even though this did go lower. I go for the wicks. We can draw it up to about right here, kind of where we close on that zone right there. I like that. And then we go high of the week, which was right there, and let's just move it all the way down to connect to that point. Now, does this make sense? Once you draw your lines, ask yourself, does this make sense? Yeah, this makes a lot of sense, right? The reason why I ended up shorting Friday at the top right there, we would have smacked it. We smacked the yellow trend line. We had resistance. Not only supply, sellers were stacked here because we sold off the day before that. You can see we sold off from the same area. So we opened up in there after gapping up. So we had a gap under. We have resistance up here. We're in this flag. We opened up, yeah, no brainer why I took puts for the move down there. And notice how, we rejected and came all the way down to bottom of the flag. So that makes a lot of sense, right? Where does this make sense, right? Okay, it makes sense here. We tagged it again right there. That makes a lot of sense. It also makes sense right here, which is low of that Friday. Makes a lot of sense. We're still grinding on the low end of that. Makes a lot of sense. I like it. Okay, not bad, right? Don't need to go, don't need to get scientific with it. Now we know if we end up kind of doing this little number on Monday and then break, we know that if we end up breaking this, I can immediately take calls knowing that we're likely going to magnet straight back up. And I will be watching this for NVIDIA going into Monday. I will be watching this for the Regal Cap members, this is something I'll be watching. When I would take calls though, I would say if we end up breaking that 205 level right here, I would take it here because we would be technically double bottoming this demand. So we know we have a lot of support down here. So knowing that we have a lot of support down here, I'm pretty comfortable taking, we have a lot of support down here. I'm pretty comfortable taking calls right here, knowing that we could easily push right back into that range, which was, Friday's high. And then 208 would be kind of my main target because that's where Friday rejected before we see any little resistance. Because nothing is ever linear. We're not just going to rip up. We could though, but say we kind of pull down, do exactly this little number, and then push up. Again, I want to be able to cash out, wait for the drop, push right back in, or trim some, let it ride, roll up when it's time to ride, and do that a little bit smarter, right? Sell most of my contracts on the first position up here when it hits my target, leave a few runners for the week, knowing that if this is Monday, I'm holding weeklies. I don't need to panic. And then of course we end up coming down a little bit. I'm still somewhat up on my runners. It holds. And then once the next day ends up breaking that resistance, right? That level that we rejected. If we end up breaking that, I am now rolling up to a new strike. So now I am holding two different strikes, one heavier than the next because the runners were all that I'm holding on the other position. This is a new position. I'm sizing normal. And then of course I'm going to sell all once we hit everything. I'm selling the runners and I'm selling that new position, all of it. I could be trimming on the way up on the new position, or I could just sell all the contracts up there, hitting my target right up there at that 212, 210. Again, this strategy is a really good strategy. I love playing this. This is not you're predicting new all-time highs. We're not saying, hey, this is going to hit all two highs. I'm holding it for a new all-time high break to 215. No, I'm just saying I'm holding these calls to a level we were just at. Fundamentally, that's usually how that flag pattern works. So just knowing how the flag pattern works is gonna help you a lot. So definitely keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on that. I am definitely going to keep an eye on this. But one thing I cannot ignore is those gaps below for SPY and QQQ. Maybe we do see a little bit cooling off, right? Say the upside does not come. Say we do a little bit of the opposite number, right? Because I'm ready for that upside. Now, I'm also ready for that downside. We caught the move up. Easily we can catch this move all the way down. Now, what are the levels? We know that 200 level is a real level. We played it already. We lose this zone, right, which was that kind of flag right here. If we end up losing this, we know we're coming down to 199. That's a $3 drop right there. We know they might fight it there because, that breakout level, we played it on the move up. This is a real level. Or they end up losing it and we come right back down to our breakout level that we played last Tuesday, right? We're familiar. We know these levels work because we played it that week. We played it. So we know these levels work. We know we can do that. Now, one thing we can check real quick is our indicators, right? I like to go with the volume profile. Webull has a bunch of new indicators. They upgraded their indicators. So, guys, go check this out. Get on there and just kind of play with them. Tell me if you find anything worth adding to the chart. You guys already know, and I'm talking kind of to the RioCat members, maybe not even members. Let me know. Let me know. Message me on Twitter, on X, Rico Capital, if you're on the YouTube or the Twitch people. But find something on here. I like how the likes are on here, but find something and let me know if it's worth it. Anyways, I'm looking at the volume profile. You can see right there, it's pretty thin there. Yes, there are some buyers sitting there, but not enough to hold us like a shelf like this. So you can see, yes, we hit that level. There's a little bit of buyers there. Nowhere to be really found until down here. So, okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's a good play. Are you seeing a gap below an Apple? I see it on the option chart, but not in the regular chart. Let's see. We can take a look at that. Let me delete this real quick. And I want to take off that real quick. I have it on my app. I have the volume profile on my app 24/7. I don't have it on this. Sometimes it gets in the way. I don't know why. Anyways, all right, let's take a look at Apple. Apple, I do see the daily gap. I see the daily gap sitting in at 264, 265, and that's what I said. That's what my target is. Likely should hit that Monday. To be honest, this was a nasty daily gap, very nasty from earnings. Ripped up after hours, but faded it all the way, not open, ended up fading down. It was just pretty slow, but I do expect this to trickle down into this all-time high breakout right there. That's the last kind of main level right there. I expect them to eat that gap, which is kind of into this gap right here, a little bit into there, 264, 265, and then from there, see what it kind of does. They would need to hold it there from there. But a lot of indecision. You really don't want to see that on when it comes to earnings. Apple, the initial dip, and then ripped, and then faded. I would say, the reason why right at open I was liking the Apple puts was because the earnings players really helped. Right, they were call buyers. The bulls, they got faked out for the initial dump and then pushed up to 284. Likely they're still down on their position on those calls because of the whiplash. And so it opened up, and they're just thankful that it opened up. I would say not too, I don't know, not too sold off, but notice how when we sold off pretty heavily from 277 all the way down to 270, 269. $7 drop right here. They really helped us because they were panicking, thinking, oh, we could push right back up. But once it started pulling down, they're like, no, I'm likely cooked, so I'm going to sell. Mixed in with some put buyers, stepping in some lotto put buyers, we got that move down. But, pretty nicely done. Just straight dump right here. Ended up entering at 275 area, 275 break, and then ended up dropping all the way to 269, 270. Pretty cool stuff right there. We should drop to that 265, 264. So another $5 drop from there. Also, what I really like about this too is you can see it, but nice little bear flag right here. I like that. Bear flag sitting over, the real support down here, which I can turn that green. It should be green. The last support below right there. So yes, sir. I like that. Should break. As long as it ends up breaking that low of day on Friday, which was about 269.16, it'll end up coming right down there. So pretty cool stuff. Shout out to 172 of y'all showing up here, or 172 plus. I see y'all. Shout out to the Twitch people. Appreciate y'all showing up. Questions, let me know. Appreciate y'all showing up. Yeah, so I wanted to go over already, everything I went over. Just kind of how you look for setups, right? You can not have any charts or any levels on your charts and just see stuff like this and be like, all right, I like this. I see it's bear flagging easily on the hour and the 15. This should drop, but again, you won't know your exits. You got to know your exits, and that's equally as important as your entries. So that's why I say take that step further and have a good, mark your levels, and then get to the trend lines and get to the patterns, and then from there you'll be all right. You'll definitely be all right. This market, I would say from Thursday and Friday, a little bit of Wednesday too. Actually, yeah, Wednesday. Greed was trying to get me a little bit, especially with the puts. I was up 30, 40, 50%, and in my head, I didn't trim at all on some of those puts early. And because in my head I was like, oh, the move that's coming is gonna be 400%. This is gonna be a three. These contracts are gonna go 400%. In my head, I'm already spending the money. Um, I'm already going down Rodeo. I'm already shopping. Everything. Life's good. I'm already laughing with Jeff Bezos. I'm already on the yacht. I'm gone. Next thing I know, huge wick, and we come right back up, and those puts are now red on me, and I'm just like, what am I doing? I'm not following my rules. I'm not taking my systematic trims, right? My systematic trims would have been 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% stops above buy. I'm good. Let's see what happens. If it keeps going, I'm then now going to press and roll into some new contracts and keep pressing on the move down. Don't even worry about that old position because it's already covered. I'm rolling into a new one. Then trim into the move, stop split on that one, then I'm rolling into a new one if I have to. That's kind of the mentality. And so, when it comes to trading options, guys, you could freeze, and plenty of times I have not, I wouldn't say froze, but I get caught in thinking, overthinking. And when you're overthinking and the play is happening, there's no time to be thinking. You need to be reacting. You need to be getting active. That's what it's about right there. If you get caught up in your head, you start thinking about, well, what happens if this goes 400%? Well, if I only take 30%, 40% right now, I'm out of buying power. Then what do I do this? What happens if it does this? It is only Tuesday. You start going, and then all of a sudden, the market's like, wick. You're up 60, 70%, wick, and now you're down on the position. And then now your game plan is, best case for me to beat that is just trim into the move. Stop thinking about it. If you can roll down, roll down. If you win on the day and you're green on the day and it ends up going more than expected, who cares? Who cares? Staying green and staying consistent is the more important thing, and that's how you will do it with kind of the rules that I cultivated. So that's kind of what I'm looking for now. Sometimes we get those massive moves, and sometimes the move is decent, and you can take what you can get. But I don't know. I hate it sometimes where I'm like, all right, 10, 20, 30, 40%, 50%, I'm good, I'm out. And then the position does go 500% that day. And I'm like, damn, and I swear, it's never the moves that I expected. It's always the moves I least expected, where I'm like, nah, no way this goes 500%. And it ends up going 500%. It's just how it goes. It's just how it goes. So being able to just, I'd say, have a system in place that will protect you from all that is one thing I would say implement the most, because my P&L is built off that. My P&L is built off that. My winning is built off that. My winning is not built off of hope and just kind of getting in my head of this could go 500%. So let's see. No, my P&L and my winning is built off of just being active, having my set rules. So that's the thing. All right. What I want to go over before I let y'all go real quick is one thing I'm seeing a lot out of you guys, out of traders in general that are not profitable. You want to be profitable, listen to me right now. A lot of traders don't know where they're at in the market with SPY and QQ. One big hint or one big tip that helped me a lot and that I still do to this day is I also play shares and options, right? If I'm like, I think this move is going to work. Same thing for the Nvidia. So prime example is that I was in shares by Thursday, Friday of last week. I think we're going to move up into this move. Now, it might not be linear, so that's where the shares come in for the gain. Then I'm going to be in and out of contracts on the move up, or holding runners on the move up, or being systematic with my contracts while simultaneously capturing the full move with shares. That's what you guys need to do. Now, if you're a smaller portfolio, then that's okay. All I want you to do is buy one share of either SPY, QQ, and if those are too expensive for you because they're $600, then yes, don't do that. I want you to buy one share of TQQ, way cheaper. It's tracking QQ the same way. And then I want you to buy one share of UPRO, which is it's pretty much SPY. It's pretty much S&P 500, so SPY leverage. So it's pretty much like a TQQ. So I want you to do that. TQQ and UPRO. buy them for the smaller ports. If you're a bigger port, you can buy SPY and QQ so you can track. Now, this will be your base. This will be your base. Say you have $1,000. Say you have $1,000. You buy two shares, two shares of TQ, two shares of UPRO, and maybe you threw in some fractional shares of $50 in between them, real quick. You spent $500 between them. You have $500. That is your base. You have another $500 for options you can play with. You now know that even if you somehow lose completely on options, you still have $500 or a base in the TQQ and UPRO, basically SPY QQ. That is your base. When you buy those shares, you are not selling until you are a bigger account, and this is how it will get you a bigger account. This will now end up riding the market. These will end up going green. These will be holding up your base. These will be making you money. And so also you will now know where the market is at all times. So when you wake up pre-market and you look at your portfolio, you're going to see pre-market or overnight, you're up pretty big. Okay, we're gapping up here. Okay, we're up pretty big. I don't really need to chase calls. I think we can stay patient, right? And just see if we can slam some dips. Because once there's this thing where once you're checking it every single day and you know where we are, where TQ and UPRO basically our market, SPY QQ, where you know where we are, you're going to start identifying where the entries and exits are, especially with my strategy. You're gonna start identifying, okay, I like this. We're gonna hold here. I know we're good. I'm slamming some calls here for that extra gain for the move to this because we've been to these levels. I know these levels. So that's where you're gonna familiarize. The buying the shares of the TQQ and UPRO, about a few shares of those, it's not like you're going to get rich overnight with those. That's not the intention of that. The intention is protecting your portfolio and familiarizing yourself with the market of knowing where we're at, right? You blow the 500, all of a sudden, you're not going to blow all the 500. I would hope you don't. But if you did, you still have half your portfolio. You didn't blow 100% of it, right? So you have half. You can be like, all right, now I'm going to kind of sit back. Maybe I'll throw a little bit more money into this for the option, and then gain on the option. Then what I want you to do is when you get profits on the option, I want you to again buy more UPRO or TQQ, and then send some to your bank account, pay yourself. So then you are slowly paying yourself and buying the shares at the same time. So basically you are now, building up that equity in TQ and UPRO. And at that point, your portfolio is going to start giving you gains and you're going to start seeing, the gains from that. So that's why I want you guys I think that's probably the most best strategy. No one's ever going to tell you something like that because I really don't think most of these people know what they're doing. That's helped me the most, right? That's how I show you guys my 3 month. I showed my 3 month my 3 month P&L, and you can see, any type of drawdown was from the shares, and then I know, okay, where we're going to be slamming these calls and we're banking off, the upside. Because if you know where the bottom is with the shares, you can ride some heavy contracts and your up will be 2 times harder than any type of downside, right? And that's kind of how I saw it with NVIDIA, where I was right on the NVIDIA shares because I got in a little bit earlier, but I know that when I ride contracts on the move up with my shares, my gain is going to be 2 times harder than I would with just shares or with just contracts. So kind of mixing the two, I think that's, some of the best advice I can give. And I really hope you guys can definitely kind of keep that in mind and use that. It's a slow process at first, but I'm telling you, it compounds very fast, very, very fast. And that is my secret when it comes to kind of using that, guys. So I want you guys to definitely, I would say utilize that. And I do with that. I do as well. So hope you guys can kind of hear me on that as well. This is some pretty solid advice. So hopefully you guys listen. Let me know if you like that strategy. Let me know if you kind of do something like that already. Let me know kind of your thoughts on that. I like it. I like it the most, because there are days where I'm like, man, my shares are not really even moving. I'm not going to touch contracts. There's no way. If my shares ain't doing anything, then no way I'm going to do anything with contracts. So it's more of a psychological help more than anything else. Just understanding with options, because the options are a really good tool if used right. I see a lot of traders or new traders just only trading options. And that's okay, but you're not an expert. And even me, I would say if I'm just trading options, you got to be like so on point, very on point, and you got to know the days to sit back and do nothing. A lot of times people don't know how to do that, don't know how to do that. So I want you guys, I want you guys to definitely, use that, get something very similar to that, implement something like that, and make the stocks that you buy are indexes. Don't just buy random names. That's not going to help. It's not going to help at all, because random names have their own mind of their own, and you got to be able to track where we're at. Trust me, it helps. And then of course, once you start, getting those gains, you can start allocating those gains right to your bank account. You can allocate it to other stocks. That's where you can start buying individual names, but you need your base. You got to have a foundation first. Foundation, right? If you have zero foundation and your portfolio, you're just trading options and your portfolio is not moving at all because all you're doing is trading options, you now then have to go look up the stock symbols. You have to understand and be on point of where we're at in the market with SPY and QQ and stuff like that. It's easier just to buy the damn SPY QQ or UPRO and TEQ, and you can just wake up and check and say, oh, my portfolio is red today. All right, bark is red. Let's see what's up. What's going on? Okay, we gapped down. Harder day here. Let's see if I can, do something with that. If not, it's all good. We'll come back. Or say we pushed up, we gapped up, and be like, all right, my portfolio is green right now. It's such a psychological thing, because you can be like, hey, on these few shares, I'm up about $50. And to me, okay, you know what? $50 is a lot of money. I like that. I don't think I need to push it today, because if my goal is to make $100 today, then I don't need to push it. I just got to make a quick $50 on some options maybe, and not force anything, and not put so much pressure on yourself. So stop putting so much pressure on yourself, guys. I'm far past that. I need to make this amount of money today. I used to do that to myself a lot. I need to make this amount of money to survive, this amount of money to, have, for bills, bank accounts, stuff like that. I need this. And so it was a lot of pressure. I'm fortunate to be past that now because I've been trading for so long. But trading your way out of the hole, I would say the whole being, just poverty. I would say, the more the I love trading, because like the more right decisions and things you make money and you get further away from that hole. And so the more cushion and stuff you get away, but the more money you make, or the more assets and whatever you have, helps a lot. And when you're managing a portfolio, it starts small, but it compounds very fast. So don't forget that. Do not forget that. Questions, let me know. If not, let's see. If not, then I think we're good for this session, right? Been an hour. Been an hour. Hopefully you guys. And I'm gonna tweet it out right now. Gave some great advice to manage a portfolio towards the end, right? Hopefully you guys like this. Shout out to over 200 y'all showing up. Manage a portfolio. Gave some great advice to manage a portfolio toward the end of stream. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. Anyways, awesome, awesome. Hopefully you guys had a good Halloween, good festive holidays, or if you're just having a relaxing weekend. Hopefully you're having a good relaxing weekend. Shout out to 200 plus of y'all showing up here. I know it's Saturday. Just wanted to get on here. I kind of give y'all the game a little bit, right? How we did for this week. Some of the monster moves we caught. NVIDIA pressed that. How we caught pretty much high of the week and knew to play puts after that. And just my thoughts going into next week. A little bit of charting here. I did it all. I did it all today. Did it all. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this stream. Of course, I'm ready to trade. I'm ready to get to it next week. I'm ready to go. I love trading too much, too much, too much. Love this stuff. Anyways, awesome. All right, not gonna talk y'all's ear off. Shout out to 210 plus of y'all showing up here. Appreciate y'all showing up. Done for the stream. Have a good rest of y'all's night. This will post here on X if you want to rewatch it. So go for it. So, anyways, appreciate y'all showing up. Have a good rest of y'all's weekend. I'll see y'all tomorrow for the stream. So we're ready for the setups and everything for a new week. Let's make that money, people. Let's make that money. We got money to make. All right, appreciate y'all showing up. Have a good rest of y'all's night.